The year was 121 AD, and the Roman Empire was at one of its largest extents. A boy named Marcus was born. His family was from South Hispania and of patrician stock. He was raised in a villa on one of the many hills in Rome, and at a young age he was introduced to philosophy and rhetoric by his Greek and Latin tutors. Marcus was deeply fascinated by the philosophy of Stoicism, which he embraced fervently. Stoicism is a school of thought founded by Zeno of Citium in the Hellenistic period, and it is based on self-control and virtue. The principles of Stoic life deeply affected Marcus. He would later become one of the leading Stoic philosophers. In the following years, he was adopted by the Emperor Antoninus Pius as his son and heir, alongside with Lucius Verus. In the era of the 5 good emperors, the line of succession was through adoption. Marcus married Faustina, the emperor's daughter, and served unofficially as co-emperor for 20 years, until Antoninus Pius died. When the Senate sought to make him emperor, he demanded that his adopted brother would be pronounced emperor as well, and so Marcus and Lucius began their reign. The first years went well for the 2 new emperors as well as the empire. They took a number of measures which improved the army, helped the poor, boosted the economy, and promoted art and education. However, this would soon change. In 161 AD, the Parthians invaded Armenia, which was a client state of Rome at the time. The Romans sent an army, but were defeated, and then the Parthians pushed forward into the empire. There was an urgent need of an emperor's presence, and it was decided that Lucius would lead the campaign against the Parthians, while Marcus stayed in Rome to rule. After 5 years of war, Rome was emerged victorious, mainly because of Lucius' generals. The Roman army returned home with extensive treasures from the Parthian cities, having captured a small part of the Parthians' land. The Roman soldiers, however, were carriers of a new disease. It would later be known as the Antonine Plague, and its effects were devastating. The epidemic lasted for at least 15 years, and up to 10% of the empire's population was killed. At the time of the plague's outbreak in Rome, a coalition of Germanic tribes and Sarmatians attacked the Roman region of Pannonia. The Germanic tribes were mainly consisted of the Marcomanni and the Quadi, while the Sarmatian tribes were the Iazyges. Marcus and Lucius led the campaign to prevent further attacks on the north, and the so-called First Marcomannic War had begun. A few months later, Lucius Verus died, probably from the plague that was sweeping through the empire. Thus Marcus became the sole emperor. The empire's treasury was empty, and Marcus started selling the most valuable items in his palace to cover the costs of war. The Iazyges used the opportunity and swept through Dacia, seizing its gold mines and crossing through to Moesia. The Marcomanni and the Quadi crossed the Danube and pillaged their way through the Balkans. When they returned with valuable plunder, they headed west, attacking the Roman cities, reaching as far as the city of Aquileia. Centuries had passed since an enemy came that close to the Roman region of Italia. Marcus planned a counterattack and drove the tribes out of the empire's borders. The Romans then started advancing beyond the Danube and into the tribes' land to punish them. The Marcomanni and the Quadi made a peace treaty, while the Iazyges were left alone to fight the Roman legions. The Romans drove them even further away, but the Quadi suddenly broke the peace and attacked the Romans. The battles that followed were hard for both sides, but the Romans prevailed and repelled the tribes once again. It was at that time that Marcus started to write his thoughts down on how to make decisions based on logic and virtue, constantly disciplining himself to follow the Stoic way of life. These writings would later compile a book which would be called Meditations. The book itself is widely revered today. Back in our timeline, after long and stressful battles, the Quadi made a peace pact with the Romans while the Iazyges kept fighting. Just as Marcus was going to deliver the final blow to the Iazyges, a general named Avidius Cassius, who had fought in the Parthian Wars and was granted the Roman region of Syria, inspired from a rumor that Marcus is fatally ill, proclaimed himself emperor, with most neighboring provinces supporting his claim. Marcus had to pause the punitive expeditions to deal with the general. He agreed to a peace pact with the Iazyges and started his journey to the southeast of the empire. While on his journey, he learned that Avidius was killed by his own men, but Marcus kept on, to ease the tensions in the region. His wife Faustina died, probably from an illness during the stay in Cappadocia. Marcus traveled all the way to Alexandria and then returned to Rome, where a big event was held to celebrate his victories against the invading tribes. A huge column was raised in his name to demonstrate the details of the battles that the Romans had fought. His son Commodus, who accompanied him in the war, was 16 years old, and Marcus decided to promote him as his heir. He was named Augustus and was unofficially made co-emperor. Marcus did not enjoy long rest in Rome because the Quadi invaded the empire again. He hoped he would not have to go this time and that the matter would end soon. But after the Romans were unable to fend the Quadi off, he realized that his presence was required in the battlefield. With the Azygis now allies of Rome, the Romans had to fight with the Quadi and the Marcomanni. The emperor aspired to carve out two new provinces for the empire, Marcomannia and Sarmatia. The Antonine Plague had claimed the life of hundreds of thousands of Roman citizens, and the empire was in dire need of new ones who would serve in the Roman army and pay taxes. To the dismay of the Romans, the Quadi ceased the fighting and started to move north. Keeping up to their pace, the Romans surrounded them, and a huge battle of numerous Germanic tribes against the Romans followed. The Romans were victorious, but while the dream of a Marcomannia province became almost real, the plague claimed the life of Marcus Aurelius. His son Commodus became the emperor, and the slow decline of the Roman Empire had begun.